What is up, everybody? I'm NoLucksGiven here with your afternoon snap and a quick review for the January 2026 Marvel Snap season, Dragons. I've covered all of these cards in previous videos, but just want to give a quick update here since some of the cards have changed since I've last reviewed them, and some of my opinions of some of these cards have changed since I've last reviewed them. So first off, we have the Season Pass, which has actually changed since my video where I covered all of these cards, but my opinion on this card has not changed. In fact, this card has potentially gotten better. Now it is a 5/8 with on reveal, give the last character you played +3 power for each turn you played 2 or more cards. And it actually has some synergies down here at the bottom, which is a new thing for this video, I believe. Or I've just been totally blind to it in the past, but Thena has the exact same trigger as Xiaolao the Undying. I feel like this compatible section is just totally eating my lunch here because this is typically what I talk about. But yeah, Kate Bishop gives you some cheap cards that you can play. Same as Prowler. Gonna do the same thing. Kitty Pryde allows you to play that card every single turn, but I'm not sure that Kitty Pryde is exactly where you want to be, but Merlin does seem like the go-to first option for this card. Merlin is just a super powerful card to begin with, and if you can get additional value off of doing what you already want to do with Merlin, and you're also gaining additional value from like Werewolf by Night, it just seems like a really great card, a really compatible card with Xiaolao the Undying here. One thing that I will say, I don't think that it is worth it, just in case people get ideas in their head, I don't think it's worth it to play 0 cost cards in your deck, Wasp and Yellow Jacket, to try to trigger this ability on turn 1. I think turn 1, just skip or play 1 card, and then turn 2 and onward is when you want to start playing multiple cards per turn. But maybe even turn 2 is when you just play your Merlin or your Kate Bishop. And then turn 3 onward is when you would want to play multiple cards in a turn. So you're looking at turns 3, 4, 5, and potentially 6 playing 2 cards each turn. And you can play more cards than that. So I don't know if Thena is actually necessarily where you want to go, because Thena wants you to play exactly 2 cards, which is a different weird constraint, but one that can certainly work with Xiaolao. But if you were just hitting those 4 turns where you're playing 2 or more cards, then this is giving +12, meaning it is a 5/20, which is pretty dang good. And you could also pair this with something like Absorbing Man or Grandmaster by playing Xiaolao on turn 5, meaning that you're only giving a +9, but then you're redoing that. Actually, on turn 5, you'd only potentially be doing like a +6, but that's still very good. That's still 5/14. If you trigger this ability on turns 3 and 4, then play Xiaolao on turn 5, and then turn 6, do something like Absorbing Man Grandmaster or something weird like that, just to get some ideas flowing here. Really, the main consideration that is going to hold Xiaolao back is the fact that a lot of people are already saying like, okay, this thing is going to get nerfed. So that would be the one downside to Xiaolao, that it just seems way too ridiculously good looking and needs to get reined in a little bit. Dragon of the Moon is a 3/2 with on reveal, steal 1 power from even costed cards in all hands, both your own and your opponent, and it's compatible with Ronin. Sure, if they have a bunch of cards in their hand, you'll be able to steal more power, Master Mold, Luke Cage, so that way you can remove the debuff from your own cards, then Maximus and Crystal. Baron Mordo, I don't think draws a card anymore, so that one might be a little bit out of date. I guess the main idea with Baron, the overlap there, is if they have that Baron card in their hand, they won't be able to play it, so it's an additional card that you can steal power from. One interesting point that I've heard raised about this card is that it is probably going to be better if you play it on turn 3. And as the game goes on, as players are able to play multiple cards each turn, then it is going to then be able to steal less power from cards. And that's mostly true other than like Kate Bishop arrows or Nick Fury adding multiple cards to your hand. The number of cards in hand typically goes down over the course of the game. And the other synergy that I wanted to bring up, though I don't think it's super fruitful, but there have been decks in the past that have played only odd cost cards, and that means you're only stealing power from your opponent's cards. It's probably not as good as just playing Luke Cage and removing all of the debuffs from your own cards anyways, but you do have to consider that it is a 3-cost card as well, which means you'd potentially play it alongside a bunch of other 3-cost cards in Silver Surfer, and you could trigger it again somewhat early with a Silver Surfer First Steps, or just play it alongside a bunch of other 3-cost cards plus maybe a Serra in a typical Silver Surfer shell. The decks that had previously played only odd cost cards were Moon Knight, Darkhawk decks, and a lot of the cards that contribute to Darkhawk are also odd-costed cards. And then you play Moon Knight, and you only play Proxima Midnight as the only even-cost card in your deck. That way you're always able to discard that for free, while also making your opponent actually discard a card. Will that actually be something you want to do with this? I'm not sure, but it's cool that you can play Moon Knight and Dragon of the Moon together, and they do have similar setups in the deck construction. Also, it says cards. It really means characters. You can't steal power from skills. Lockheed is a 2/1 with end of turn. If you played a 1-cost card this turn, afflict an enemy card here with -2 power. It's compatible with Kitty Pryde and other 1-cost cards that we've talked about previously, the Kate Bishop arrows, the Merlin spells, and that's mostly it. Those are going to be the most repeatable 1-cost effects, though it could potentially see play in like Sanctum Showdown later this season. That is typically a game mode where a bunch of 1-cost cards are played, and I'm thinking about like, okay, maybe in like the Marvel Boy deck or something, Lockheed could be a reasonable card. The other thing that I am looking at with Lockheed is that it's an end of turn card. And so could it potentially be used with Invisible Woman First Steps? I think a lot of people aren't super excited on the idea of this as a Merlin card because the slots in that deck are like fairly tight anyways, though I do think it's worth pointing out Werewolf by Night, you get +2 power anytime you play an on reveal. Lockheed is also 2 power for, well, a slightly different requirement, but similar, a lot of similar overlap in that because they're both going to trigger off of a Merlin spell, they're both going to trigger off of most Kate Bishop arrows, and they're both going to trigger off of a Deafening Chord as well. So, yeah, Lockheed definitely does have some comparisons there. It feels like it falls a little bit short in those decks. I am curious if it could gain some strength in the Invisible Woman First Steps decks, and it's certainly not the most powerful end-of-turn trigger to repeat multiple times in a deck like that. Thena is 3 power, I believe, and the other card that is you lose an energy at the end of each turn, I always forget the name of this card, but I believe that is also 3 power. I could be wrong on either of those. The question also is like, what is an easier requirement to satisfy? and playing a 1-cost card might be a fairly easy requirement. You could just play a Sunspot on the final turn and then soak up 5 energy into Sunspot, which is something that is a little bit trickier with Thena. When you're both trying to satisfy Thena and Sunspot on the final turn, you wind up needing to play 2 cards but also not spend any energy, and it's much easier to not spend as much energy while also playing a 1-cost card to satisfy Lockheed instead. Lin Lie is a 2/2 with on reveal, add the Sword of Fuzi to another location, and the Sword of Fuzi is an ongoing. If Lin Lie Iron Fist is here, he has +7 power. And can we see exactly how much power the sword has? Probably another 2/2, right? Yeah. Okay, so it's a 2/4 baseline. If you find a way to move it, it can get +7. And another interesting angle to this is if you can play an Aurora, then you'll pump up both Fuzi and Lin Lie. Additional compatibilities listed here are Madam Web, Cloak, Moonstone, okay, for doubling the Sword of Fuzi's ongoing, Onslaught similarly, and Sam Wilson, which I don't actually see that one, but sure. Basically, this winds up being a new take on Dagger, because it's a 2-cost card that gets a bonus if it moves. However, it can only get that bonus exactly 1 time. So it's definitely a little bit different than Dagger, and you won't necessarily always be able to play around it because of the fact that you don't know where that sword is going to go. Like, for instance, you can't just guaranteed get the bonus off of this with an Iron Fist or an Aranya or even a Ghost Spider that you try to play on turn 3 alongside Lin Lie. And I think that that definitely makes it a trickier cookie to crack, and why we see Madam Web. But like, Madam Web is so good with every move card, and Moonstone is so good with every ongoing card that I'm not sure if this is exactly going to be worthy of the payoff. I will say that there are decks playing both Madam Web and Moonstone, so maybe you could get away with that. And the power is reasonable. You move it once, it's effectively a 2/11, 2 + 2 + 7. And that is better than a fully maxed out Dagger. A Dagger that moves into a full opposing location would get +8 for a total of 10 power. And this is 11 for moving once, but you only get that power for moving it once. But still, maybe it could see some play in those Madam Web, Moonstone ongoing decks. It gives you an ongoing card and an on-reveal card, like I said, so that's better for Aurora than it is for Spectrum. And those decks are typically going to be Spectrum decks because they're all in on the ongoing angle. I think another cool card with Aurora is Zombie Mr. Fantastic, which this is also working with, and it's working for Mockingbird, stuff like that with the created sword. I think that ultimately the card is not super flexible in terms of how you can utilize it. The fact that it doesn't even work with a majority of the tried and true movement cards also, I think, is just going to be a drawback. There's like some potential upside in being able to put it on the board and not get the power of it when you don't want it, and then get the power of it when you do want it, in terms of managing priority, and it's not Shadow Kingable. So there are some upsides, but ultimately I think it's just too difficult to make work unless you are specifically looking for a 2/4 that you can grab some benefit of from Aurora. Fin Fang Foom is potentially the reason I'm making this video, because I think I was wrong about this card. It is a 7/12, 7 energy cost with 12 power that has, on reveal, gain the power of front row enemy cards here. And some compatible cards with it, of course, are going to be Wave, Blink, Magic, Fallen One, Wiccan, and Dragon Lord, which we will get to in a moment. I thought this card wasn't going to be worth it initially. 7 energy means that it is pretty tricky to play, right? But not actually as tricky as you might think. Ramp is already like a tier 1 deck right now, and not only can you play this on turn 6 with the help of Luna Snow, you can also cheat it out with Hela, which is more powerful than I initially even imagined, because Hela decks sometimes play Scar and Death just because she brings back cards with different energy costs. And Fing Fang Foom having a 7 energy cost might actually be an upside in Hela decks, because it basically means that you can grab 2 Infinauts in your deck. Instead of just playing a random 7/12, you get to play like a 7/20, or potentially even more. If you are up against like an opposing ramp deck or something, Fin Fang Foom is just going to be able to go over the top. I am also a huge Arishem enjoyer, and while this initially seemed silly to me, Arishem is a deck that has in the past played Galactus First Steps and Blob and Isan and Thanos as well, and all of these things do have something in common. They cost 6, which means you could play them on turn 5 with the extra energy from Arishem, but oftentimes you'll play them on the final turn anyways because you want to be able to dodge opposing tech. And I don't know, Fing Fang Foom could have a home in Arishem in the future and could just be good in ramp decks as a whole. I think about how often I play a lot with like Nightmare decks, and how often does Nightmare or any type of ramp decks, how often do you just wind up playing one big card on the final turn? And if you're just playing one big card on the final turn and you're already ramping, might as well make it this one. Shang-Chi is getting a new card. We have the Master of the Rings as a 3/5 with game start. The 10 rings starts in your hand, and when you play Shang-Chi, he has on reveal unlock their potential. The 10 rings, I believe, is a 2-cost card with, you know what, it might actually have some power now that they have nerfed it a little bit.
He makes the 10 rings start in your hand, which grant bonus power to one of your cards.
It looks like the rings are a 2/2. And the rings say, on reveal, give one of your cards here +1 power, but once you unlock the rings, it has the ability, end of turn, give your other cards here +1 power. And one thing that I do have to see here in this clip, did they still get the on reveal?
Precision. He makes the 10 rings start in your hand, which grant bonus power to one of your cards. When you play Shang-Chi, it unlocks the ring's full potential to button.
No. Okay, so they did a bad sequence there. They should have flipped over the 10 rings, got the on reveal on either Clea or Seabass, and then flipped over Shang-Chi to unlock the potential and change the ability to an end of turn ability, which is a cool ability. End of turn, give your other cards here +1 power. We can see some of the cards in hand that this is synergistic with: Clea, Sebastian Shaw, Maverick, and company. It's going to be good with all of those, except I don't think it's going to be good with any of these. They significantly nerfed the 10 rings so that the base of the card, giving one of your other cards here, no, just give one of your cards here +1 power. So it can potentially even pump itself on the initial on reveal. So that does still have the ability to go 10 rings into Superior Spider-Man, I believe. So that is something. However, most people that I've seen are under the impression that the 10 rings takes up a draw from your starting hand. And that is a lot worse than it seems, because by opting into playing Shang-Chi, you will then still have Shang-Chi in your deck, so you are basically playing a 13 card deck. And this winds up playing out a little bit, no, not even like Dormammu, because Dormammu you still get an extra card. But with Shang-Chi, it's basically like you don't get an extra card, but you still have that bigger deck. So if you're building your entire deck around Superior Spider-Man, you will actually be a less consistent Superior Spider-Man deck than anyone just playing a 12-card deck. And that's a huge difference with how small the decks are in Marvel Snap. You think about something like Yu-Gi-Oh! I believe has 40 card decks, Pokemon and Magic the Gathering have 60 card decks. Playing one additional card in those decks, especially if you were to get like something to start in your hand because of it, would increase consistency. But in a game like Marvel Snap, you're really just making your strategies a lot more inconsistent because you're going to be much less likely to draw Superior Spider-Man on turn 3.
The game is super easy
this is
to learn
actually
for
a
newcomers,
tie-in.
but will also feel very
Cool.
familiar to veteran
Oh,
TTRPG
that's
players
why
alike.
there's
Marvel has
dragons.
almost 100
It's
years of incredible
dragons
storytelling,
and
being able to take that
dungeons.
rich history.
Yeah, this is one of the better web shop purchases. You probably want to buy everything on the web shop unless you have like gift cards or whatever, but there's always extra bonuses there. And this season, it is a free Series 5 Snap Pack, which was pretty cool. I got Spider-Man Noir, so yeah, that was cool. There's also Dragon Lord coming this season, which they don't give you the stats or text for, but this is a 5/5 with on reveal, put a card from your hand here. And I think that this card seems a little innocuous, but could actually be pretty good. If you're playing this in a ramp deck, oftentimes in those decks you have a bunch of cards in your hand at the end of the game anyways, because you can only play one big card every single turn. So this just gives you like a free 5 power, and then sure, you might play a Red Hulk with it, or you might play a Galactus First Steps. It's all kind of the same, and you just get an additional 5 power on top of that. I do see some additional synergies with this inside of a Hela deck that is already running Odin. It gives you a different angle to play around instead of going for the Hela lines, and then you can use Odin to re-trigger this. Now, if you are doing that, you might want to also consider some expensive cards that have the ability to move, maybe with like Vision or potentially Heimdall and Hellion, which are just big cards, and then you can distribute your power across multiple locations. And maybe that makes you a Red Wing deck. Probably not, but I do think that this card is fine. I'm not sure how excited people are going to be by it, but it's really just 5 additional power on top of whatever you're already doing if you have reasonable odds to hit something big. And when you don't have reasonable odds to hit something big, then just don't play it. We're going to load up the game here now, and oh, you know what? We might not hear the new season song because I think I have the audio muted from something else I was doing, but I will turn that on real quick so that we can hear it, and I am mostly loading up the game right now so that way you all can see the final card coming out this season, which for some reason was not in this video. Oh, I clicked the wrong thing. Shop. Right. Okay. And that new card is a Seasonal Series 4 card, Majestic Wingbeat. On reveal, the left card in your hand gets +2 power. If it's 5 cost or higher, -1 cost as well. And this card was initially not something that I was super excited by, because it kind of reads like, okay, you want to get both angles from it, so you want it to be a ramp card. And I was like, okay, that's not really like that good, but maybe it's fine. One thing that I have seen people talk about, I think this was from a commenter actually, the leftmost card in your hand will always be Agatha if you play this in an Agatha deck. So that is a cute interaction, but ultimately, like, a 1 energy for +2 power is kind of just all right. We've recently seen a lot of play on Agony in both Maverick decks and in Deadpool decks, and that's 1 cost for 3 power, right? And this could be similar, and especially if you are playing Maverick and you are playing Agony, that probably means you are playing a bunch of other things worth pumping, right? But if you hit either of those 2 cards, you can then choose what you're pumping up later, because you can then take the buff, and if it's on an Agony, then you take that Agony, you put it on a Maverick, and then you take that Maverick and throw it onto a Brood, and all of a sudden your +2 buff has turned into a +8 buff. So there's a lot of ways to actually abuse this, and for just 1 cost, I think you can come up with some fun synergies here. One thing that I will mention, if you have not done so already, is that commenting on any of my videos enters you in to win a season pass. So you could grab a Shu Lao yourself, and also some PAX bundles are in there for the giveaway. Every time that you comment on one of my videos is a new entry. Just make sure your comments include the word snap. That way I know that you are interested in what I'm giving away. And to finish off this video, this is going to seem a little bit of a tone shift here, but I'm going to open up some collector's reserves. I typically do this each season just to farm up some gold tickets. That way I don't have to play Proving Grounds or Silver Conquest. And I'm going to do that in this video, since we kind of did a collector's reserve opening that was a longer video at the end of last season. I am just going to sneak this one in here real quick. Bruce Banner Creative House Pocket variant. Bruce Banner now creating 14 Power Hulks, a stealth buff to that recently, was actually potentially making that a reasonable card to play. And yeah, I could see trying out Bruce Banner in the future. First Infinity Ultron variant for me, the Chibi Infinity Ultron. I did not realize this one was Chibi. It doesn't look that Chibi to me, but still nice to pick up a new variant for a card that I was variantless of. So we're starting strong here. Chunky and smooth. So yeah, typically I do this until I get about 8 gold tickets or so, somewhere between 6 and 8 gold tickets. We've gotten 0 so far. It is a cool Conquest variant this season. It's for Nightcrawler, so it's not like anything to get super excited about, to be totally honest, but it's a cool variant nonetheless. What else do we got here? This is a while with no gold ticket. We're gonna rip like runner gold tickets now. I guess we got a gold ticket right at the end of the last video, which is how it works. And I believe, ooh, rescue, okay. Not super exciting just because it's an unplayable card. Mastery. But we get the raise. So I will raise that. All right, and now the gold tickets can start flowing. There's our A-bomb. Ooh, Pixel. Pixel Ghost Rider. There's like 10 Ghost Rider variants that we have already just from events and things. It's been a Conquest variant and an event variant. So nothing to get super crazy about. I'm trying to go through this like kind of quick just to keep the runtime of the video down slightly so that it seems a little bit more palatable, but I don't want to make this like its own separate video. So we're just blowing through it. Pixel Polaris. We'll be seeing ya. Goodbye. And what do I have? Like currently 4 gold tickets? They need some keybinds to get through this. All right. That might be gold ticket number, I think that's number 4 to be totally honest. Right past that title. Do not care. And what else we got? Just remembered I have like titles and things from tournament wins that I've never claimed. Might as well claim those at some point, right? I don't think anybody really cares about them. From the Golden Gauntlet Top 16 and then making Golden Gauntlet Worlds, I think I've got redeemables from both of those events, so might as well just redeem them myself. Last chance to sound off in the comments if you're interested in purchasing them from me, but otherwise I think I will just claim them. All right, that's gotta be the end of the line here, right? How many tickets did we just grab? 7. 7 sounds good to me. That is going to be it for me for today. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'm NoLucksGiven. Peace.